The blood-curdling scream tore through the dusty afternoon air of Sweetwater, Texas, drawing every head at the auction platform toward the woman who had just collapsed. Zerelda Whitaker clutched her swollen belly. Her tear-streaked face contorted in pain as the auctioneer continued his callous patter, barely pausing at the interruption. It was the spring of 1876, and human dignity remained a commodity easily bought and sold in certain shadowy corners of the West, despite the laws that should have prevented such barbarity. Samuel Tucker watched from the back of the crowd, his jaw clenched so tight he could feel his molars grinding. At 32, he'd seen his share of cruelties during his years working cattle across the frontier, but the sight of a heavily pregnant woman being sold like livestock made his blood run cold. He'd come to town for supplies, not to witness such an abomination. "Continuing at $50 for this fine worker," the auctioneer called, pointing to Zerelda with his cane as she struggled to regain her footing. "Previous owner claims she's carrying twins. 2 for the price of 1, gentlemen. A fine investment." Sam pushed his way through the crowd, his hand instinctively moving to the wallet tucked inside his worn leather vest. The money was meant for new fencing for his modest ranch outside of town, a dream he'd been building for 5 years, since leaving the cattle drives behind. But some things mattered more than fences. $100, Sam called out, his voice carrying across the square. The auctioneer's eyebrows shot up. "100 from Mr. Tucker. Do I hear 110? A heavy silence fell over the crowd. Most of the men present were there for the novelty or out of boredom, not seriously intending to participate in what they all knew was, at best, legally questionable. Going once, going twice. Sold to Samuel Tucker for $100. Sam approached the platform where Zerelda knelt, her wrists bound with coarse rope, her eyes downcast. Only when he stood directly before her did she look up, revealing eyes the color of summer sage, filled not with gratitude but with wary suspicion. "Madam," he said softly, removing his hat. "If you'll come with me, we can see to those bindings and get you somewhere to rest." "What do you want from me?" she whispered, her voice hoarse. Sam shook his head. "Nothing. Your freedom isn't mine to take or give. I'm just making things right." The auctioneer thrust a bill of sale toward Sam. "Sign here, Mr. Tucker. She's yours now, legal and proper." Sam took the paper and scribbled his name, knowing full well there was nothing legal or proper about any of this. He helped Zerelda to her feet, carefully cutting the rope around her wrists with his pocket knife. "I have a wagon just down the street," he said. "Can you walk that far?" Zerelda nodded, one hand protectively covering her belly. "I've walked farther in worse condition, sir." As they moved away from the auction block, whispers followed them. Sam Tucker had always been respected in Sweetwater, a hard-working, honest man who kept to himself, but this action would raise eyebrows and questions. He didn't care. His wagon was hitched outside the general store, supplies half-loaded. "Wait here," he told Zerelda, helping her onto the seat. "I need to finish gathering what I came for." Inside the store, Eleanor Jenkins, the proprietor's wife, fixed him with a curious look. "Causing quite a stir today, aren't you, Sam?" Sam placed his remaining items on the counter. "Just doing what needed doing, Mrs. Jenkins." "And I'll be needing some extra things now." He paused, considering. "Do you have any of those soft flannel blankets, the kind for babies?" Eleanor's expression softened immediately. "For the woman I heard she's expecting. Twins, they say." Eleanor disappeared into the back of the store, returning with an armful of supplies. Blankets, some gowns, and a few other necessities for new little ones. "And this," she placed a small bottle on the counter, "is for her. Willow bark tonic, good for the discomforts of carrying." Sam's wallet was considerably lighter as he loaded the last of his purchases into the wagon. Zerelda sat where he'd left her, straight-backed despite her condition, watching him with those cautious eyes. As they traveled the 5 miles to his ranch, Sam tried to make conversation, but Zerelda responded with only the briefest answers. He learned she was 24, widowed when her husband was killed in a mining accident in Colorado. She'd been working as a housekeeper for a wealthy family when the master of the house had sold her to settle a gambling debt, conveniently overlooking the fact that such transactions had been illegal for over a decade. "You don't need to fear me, Mrs. Whitaker," Sam said as his ranch came into view, a modest cabin with a small barn and corral. "I bought your papers to destroy them, not to own you." "Men always want something," she replied flatly. "I want to sleep at night knowing I didn't stand by while something wrong happened right in front of me," Sam said. "Nothing more." He helped her down from the wagon and showed her into the cabin. It was simple but clean, one main room with a stone fireplace, a small kitchen area, and 2 doors leading to separate bedrooms. "The room on the right will be yours," he said. "It's not much, but it's private." Zerelda stood in the center of the main room, looking lost. "And when the babies come?" "We'll figure that out," Sam promised. "But first, you should rest. I'll bring your things and start supper." That night, after a silent meal of beans and cornbread, Sam sat at his small table drawing plans by lamplight while Zerelda watched from her seat by the fire. "What are you doing?" she finally asked. Sam looked up, surprised by her initiative. "Planning a nursery. The room next to yours is just storage now, but it has a nice window that catches the morning light." He turned the paper toward her. "Thought I'd build a proper cradle big enough for 2. Maybe a rocking chair for you." Zerelda's eyes glistened in the firelight. "Why are you doing this?" "Because every child deserves a safe place to sleep," he said simply. "And every mother deserves peace of mind." For the first time, the faintest hint of a smile touched her lips before she quickly masked it. "You're an unusual man, Mr. Tucker." "Sam," he corrected. "And out here, unusual is just another way to survive." The following weeks established a cautious routine. Zerelda gradually took over the cooking and indoor chores, insisting it was fair exchange for her room and board. Sam spent his days tending his small herd of cattle, repairing fences, and converting the storage room into a nursery as promised. He'd ride into town every Saturday for supplies, always returning with something for the babies, a handmade toy from the carpenter's shop, soft fabric from the general store, books of children's tales. Each gift was accepted with the same polite reserve, though Sam noticed the nursery was meticulously arranged when he wasn't looking. One evening in late May, Sam returned from mending a distant section of fence to find Zerelda standing in the doorway of the nursery, one hand pressed against the small of her back, the other stroking the cradle he'd finished just days before. "It's beautiful work," she said without turning. "You have skilled hands." "My father was a furniture maker back in Virginia," Sam explained, keeping a respectful distance. "He taught me before I headed west." "Why did you leave?" she asked, finally looking at him. Sam leaned against the doorframe. "After the war, there wasn't much left for me there. Too many ghosts. Came west with a cattle drive when I was 23 and never looked back." He paused. "What about you, before everything?" Zerelda's face softened with memory. "I grew up in Missouri. My father was a school teacher. I married young Thomas, was kind, ambitious. We moved to Colorado for the mining opportunities." Her hand returned to her belly. "He died before he knew about the babies. Cave in." "I'm sorry," Sam said quietly. "The mine owner gave me 2 days to vacate the company housing," she continued, her voice hardening. "I found work with the Hendersons as their housekeeper. Mrs. Henderson was kind, but her husband, she broke off. He lost heavily at cards. I was part of his payment. Sam felt a familiar anger rising. The man who was selling you in Sweetwater, Mr. Byers, a trader of sorts, deals in anything that can turn a profit. Her eyes met his, challenging. He'll be looking for me, you know. Men like him don't simply accept loss. Let him look, Sam said firmly. This is my land. You're under my protection now, though not my ownership, he quickly added. Never that. Something unreadable passed across Zerelda's face. Your protection won't matter if he comes with men and guns. Then we'll face that when it happens. For now, you and those babies need rest and peace. That night, Sam lay awake longer than usual, thinking about Zerelda's warning. She wasn't wrong. Men like Byers operated outside the law and wouldn't simply write off their losses. Sam would need to be vigilant. His worries were interrupted by a soft cry from Zerelda's room. He sat up, listening. The cry came again, a sound of pain, not fear. Sam knocked gently on her door. "Zerelda, are you all right?" "It's nothing," came her strained reply. "Just the baby's moving. Can I bring you anything?" "Water." "The willow bark tonic." A moment of silence then. "The tonic, please." Sam retrieved the bottle and returned to her door, uncertain whether to enter or pass it in. Zerelda solved his dilemma by opening the door herself, her face pale in the dim light. "Thank you," she said, taking the bottle. "Is it time?" he asked, concern evident in his voice. She shook her head. "No, just practice pains, the midwife in Colorado called them. The body preparing." She hesitated, then added, "But it won't be long now. A few weeks at most." Sam nodded. "I'll ride for the doctor tomorrow. Let him know to be ready." "Not the doctor," Zerelda said quickly. "There's a midwife in town, Mrs. Hernandez. The women at the general store mentioned her." "Mrs. Hernandez it is then," Sam agreed. "Try to rest." As June bloomed across the plains, bringing sweltering heat, Zerelda's condition grew more uncomfortable. Sam often found her pacing the cabin or sitting in the rocking chair he'd placed on the porch, seeking relief from the stifling indoor air. One evening, returning from the barn, he found her attempting to reach a high shelf in the kitchen, her face contorted with effort. "Let me," he said, hurrying to help. "What do you need?" "The cinnamon," she replied, stepping back. "I was going to make apple cake." Sam easily reached the small tin. As he handed it to her, their fingers brushed, and he was struck by how delicate her hands were despite the work they'd done. "You don't need to bake in this heat," he said. Zerelda shrugged. "Keeping busy helps." "And I wanted," she hesitated, a rare uncertainty in her voice. "Tomorrow is your birthday. Mrs. Jenkins mentioned it when you were loading the wagon last week." Sam blinked in surprise. "I'd nearly forgotten myself." "Well, a man should have cake on his birthday," she said with finality, turning back to her preparations. Sam watched her for a moment, touched by the gesture. "Thank you, Zerelda." She didn't turn around, but her movements paused briefly. "You've given me shelter and safety when no one else would. A cake seems a small thing in return. You don't owe me anything." This time she did turn, her expression serious. "That's why I'm doing it. Because I choose to, not because I must." Sam understood the distinction was important to her. "Then I'll look forward to it," he said with a smile. The next day, after finishing his morning chores, Sam returned to the cabin to find a small cake on the table, a single candle stuck in its center. Zerelda sat nearby, her hands folded over her belly. "Happy birthday," she said simply. Sam removed his hat, genuinely moved. "It's been a long while since anyone marked the day." "Make a wish," Zerelda prompted, nodding toward the candle. Sam closed his eyes briefly, then blew out the flame. When he looked up, Zerelda was watching him with curiosity. "What did you wish for?" she asked. "If I tell you, it won't come true," he teased. her lips curved in a rare, genuine smile. "Superstitious, Mr. Tucker. Cautious," he corrected, returning the smile. After they shared the cake delicious with the perfect touch of cinnamon, Sam brought out a small package from his saddlebag. "I have something for you," he said. "Well, for the babies, really." Zerelda took the package with a questioning look. Inside was a pair of tiny silver rattles, delicately engraved with scrollwork. "They were mine and my sister's," Sam explained. "The only things I kept from Virginia. Seemed right that twins should have them." Zerelda ran a finger over the engravings. "They're beautiful," she whispered. "But they're your family heirlooms. You should save them for your own children." "I'd like your babies to have them," Sam insisted gently. "Consider it my birthday gift to myself." Something shifted in Zerelda's expression, a warming, a lowering of guard. "Thank you, Sam." It was the first time she'd used his first name, and the sound of it in her voice affected him more than he cared to admit. 3 days later, Sam woke before dawn to the sound of thunder. Except the sky was clear when he looked out the window, stars still visible in the fading night. Another rumble, and he realized it was hoofbeats, several horses approaching at speed. Grabbing his rifle, Sam moved quickly to Zerelda's room, knocking urgently. "Zerelda, wake up, we have company." She opened the door immediately, already dressed, her face taut with worry. "Is it Byers?" "Don't know yet. Stay inside, away from the windows." Sam positioned himself on the porch, rifle ready but not raised, as 4 riders came into view in the gray dawn light. He recognized Byers immediately, a heavy-set man with an expensive hat flanked by 3 rough-looking men who were clearly hired guns. "Morning, gentlemen," Sam called as they reined in at the edge of his yard. "You're out early." Byers spat a stream of tobacco juice onto the dirt. "You have something that belongs to me, Tucker." "Nothing here belongs to you," Sam replied evenly. "The woman," Byers snarled. "I paid good money for her, and you interfered with a legitimate business transaction." "There was nothing legitimate about it," Sam countered. "Selling human beings has been illegal in Texas since before the war." Byers laughed harshly. "Law's a flexible thing out here, as you well know. Now, I'm a reasonable man. Return my property and we'll call it square. I'll even pay you back half of what you spent." Sam's finger tensed on the trigger. "The lady isn't going anywhere she doesn't want to go." "The lady," Byers mocked, "is a contracted servant who ran from her obligations. Her previous employer signed her over to me legally to settle a debt." "I didn't run." Zerelda's voice came from behind Sam as she stepped onto the porch. "I was sold against my will like cattle." Sam moved slightly to keep himself between Zerelda and the men. "You heard her. Now I suggest you turn around and leave my property." Byers nodded to one of his men, who drew his pistol. "I think not. Boys, search the house and outbuildings. Bring the woman." What happened next unfolded in seconds. As the men moved forward, Sam fired a warning shot into the ground before the lead horse. The animal reared, nearly unseating its rider. In the same moment, a rifle shot rang out from the direction of the barn, striking the dirt near Byers's horse. "That would be my ranch hand, Frank Lowell," Sam called out, though in truth Frank wasn't due until later that morning. "He was an army marksman. Next shot won't miss." Byers hesitated, glancing toward the barn where the shot had originated. "This isn't over, Tucker. That woman has a price on her head now." "Then I suggest you spend your money more wisely in the future," Sam replied coldly. "If you or your men set foot on my property again, we'll consider it trespassing. Texas law is very clear on what a man can do to protect his home." For a tense moment, it seemed Byers might press the issue. Then he jerked his horse around. "You've made a mistake, Tucker. Both of you." With that, He and his men rode off in a cloud of dust. When they were out of sight, Sam turned to Zerelda, who was white-faced but composed. "Are you all right?" She nodded. "Who fired from the barn?" Sam allowed himself a small smile. "No one. I propped my spare rifle against a hay bale yesterday. Must have fallen over." "A fortunate accident," Zerelda observed, a hint of admiration in her voice. "Very," Sam agreed. "But they'll be back, and with more men next time." "What will we do?" Sam noted her use of we, but didn't comment on it. "I have some ideas. But first, breakfast. No sense planning on an empty stomach." Over a meal of bacon and biscuits, Sam outlined his thoughts. "We have 3 options as I see it. We can stay and fight, which puts you and the babies at unnecessary risk. We can go to the sheriff, but Byers likely has him in his pocket. Or we can leave, head farther west where Byers has no reach." Zerelda considered this, absently rubbing her belly. "Running feels like admitting he has a rightful claim." "It's not running," Sam corrected. "It's choosing not to fight on his terms. There's land in New Mexico territory that makes this place look like a garden. I've been thinking of moving on anyway." "You'd leave your home because of me?" Zerelda asked, surprised. Sam met her gaze steadily. "This was never meant to be permanent, just a stopping place until I found something better." "And you'd take me with you? A woman about to deliver twins who brings danger to your door, if you want to come," he said simply. Zerelda studied him as if trying to decipher some hidden motive. Finally, she said, "When would we leave?" "Tomorrow at dawn," Sam replied. "I need to go into town today for supplies and to settle my affairs. Frank, my real ranch hand, can drive you in the wagon. I'll ride alongside." "So soon?" "Byers won't wait long to return," Sam said grimly. "Better to be gone before he does." The plan was set in motion immediately. Sam rode into Sweetwater, where he sold his small herd to a neighbor for a fair price and arranged for the sale of his property through the bank. By mid-afternoon, he had loaded the wagon with supplies and visited Mrs. Hernandez, the midwife, who provided herbs and advice for the journey. "The twins will come soon," the older woman warned. "Perhaps within the week. Travel is risky." "Staying is riskier," Sam explained, describing the situation with Byers. Mrs. Hernandez frowned. "Then you must go, yes. But watch for these signs." She detailed symptoms that would indicate imminent labor. "If these happen, stop immediately. Babies will not wait for convenient timing." Armed with this knowledge and supplies, Sam returned to the ranch where Zerelda and Frank were packing the essentials. The cradle would have to stay behind, but Sam had disassembled the rocking chair to fit in the wagon. "We'll need to travel light but comfortable," he told Zerelda. "The territory is beautiful but unforgiving." That night, their last in the cabin, Sam stayed awake late making final preparations. He was checking the wagon one more time when Zerelda joined him, wrapped in a shawl despite the warm night. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked. She shook her head. "Too much on my mind." They stood in companionable silence for a moment, looking up at the vast canopy of stars. "I never thanked you properly," Zerelda said suddenly. "Not just for today, but for everything. The auction, the nursery, all of it." "No thanks needed," Sam replied. "I did what any decent man would do." Zerelda turned to face him. "No, you didn't. A decent man might have objected or reported it to authorities who would do nothing. You acted. You changed the course of 3 lives." Her hand rested on her belly. "We won't forget it." In the silver wash of moonlight, Sam could see unshed tears glistening in her eyes. Without thinking, he reached out and gently brushed a strand of hair from her face. She didn't flinch away as she once might have. "We should try to sleep," he said softly. "Dawn comes early." Zerelda nodded, but neither moved immediately. Something unspoken hung in the air between them, a growing connection neither was ready to name. Finally, Zerelda stepped back. Good night, Sam. Good night, Zerelda. As she walked back to the cabin, Sam remained looking at the stars, wondering at how much had changed in the weeks since that fateful day in Sweetwater. They departed before first light, Sam on horseback leading the way, Frank driving the wagon with Zerelda beside him. The first day passed uneventfully, covering nearly 20 miles before making camp by a small creek. Frank prepared a simple meal while Sam set up a canvas shelter for Zerelda. "How are you feeling?" he asked as they ate around the small fire. "The road's rough on everyone, but especially in your condition." "I'm fine," Zerelda assured him. "Better than expected, actually. The movement seems to have settled the babies somewhat." Sam nodded, relieved. Mrs. Hernandez said to watch for certain signs. "Will you promise to tell me immediately if anything changes?" "I promise," she said solemnly. The next 2 days followed a similar pattern, each mile putting more distance between them and buyers. Sam began to relax slightly, especially when they crossed into New Mexico territory on the 3rd day. On the 4th morning, however, Zerelda emerged from her tent looking pale and uncomfortable. "What's wrong?" Sam asked immediately. "Just didn't sleep well," she said, but her hand was pressed against her lower back, and she winced as she walked. Sam exchanged a look with Frank, who nodded slightly. "I think we'll rest here today," Sam announced. "Let the horses recover. We've been pushing hard." Zerelda started to object, then grimaced as another pain seized her. "Perhaps that's wise," she conceded. By midday, there was no denying what was happening. Zerelda's pains were coming regularly, about 15 minutes apart. "The babies are coming, aren't they?" Sam asked directly. Zerelda nodded, her face tight with discomfort. "I thought we had more time." Sam turned to Frank. "Ride to the nearest settlement. It can't be more than 10 miles ahead. See if there's a doctor or midwife." As Frank galloped off, Sam helped Zerelda into the shelter, making her as comfortable as possible on a pallet of blankets. He brought water from the creek and prepared the herbs Mrs. Hernandez had provided. "I'm not much help in this situation," he admitted, kneeling beside her, "but I won't leave you alone." Zerelda managed a wan smile. "Not your first choice of adventure, I imagine." "I've had worse days," he replied lightly, trying to ease her worry. As the afternoon wore on, Zerelda's pains increased in frequency and intensity. Sam kept her supplied with water and cool cloths for her forehead, feeling increasingly helpless as she struggled. "Tell me about Virginia," she gasped between contractions. "Distract me." Sam began talking, describing the rolling hills of his childhood home, the cherry trees that bloomed in spring, the craftsmanship of his father's workshop. He talked about his sister, Emily, who had died of fever during the war, and his mother who had followed a year later from grief. "The war took everything," he explained, "not just lives, but the world as we knew it." "Is that why you never married?" Zerelda asked, then cried out as another contraction seized her. When she could breathe again, Sam answered honestly. "Partly. And partly because I never stayed in one place long enough to build something real. Until now." Zerelda's eyes found his, a question in them that neither had time to explore as her labor intensified. By sunset, Frank had not returned, and Zerelda's condition had become urgent. The contractions were nearly continuous, and she was exhausting herself. "Sam," she panted, gripping his hand with surprising strength. "I'm afraid." "Don't be," he said with more confidence than he felt. "You're the strongest woman I've ever known. You can do this." "If something happens to me," she began. "Nothing will happen," he interrupted firmly. "Listen," she insisted. "If something happens, promise me you'll care for them. Don't let them be separated. Don't let them be sold." Sam took both her hands in his. "I swear on my life, no harm will come to your children. But you're going to raise them yourself, you hear me? You're going to watch them grow." A new determination came into Zerelda's eyes. She nodded once, then braced herself as her body commanded her to push. The next hour was a blur of intensity. Sam did his best to remember Mrs. Hernandez's instructions, positioning himself to help as Zerelda labored heroically. Finally, with a cry that seemed to echo across the empty plains, the first baby emerged into Sam's waiting hands. "A boy," he announced, his voice thick with emotion. "A perfect boy." He quickly cleaned the baby's mouth and nose as instructed, relieved when a lusty cry filled the shelter. After wrapping the infant in a clean blanket, he placed him on Zerelda's chest. "Hello, little one," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. But her moment of peace was short-lived as the second baby made its imminent arrival known. "Here we go again," Sam encouraged. "You're doing wonderfully." Minutes later, a second cry joined the first as Sam welcomed another boy into the world. "Twins indeed," he said with wonder. "Two strong sons." Zerelda was exhausted but radiant as she cradled both infants. "They're beautiful," she murmured. Sam busied himself with the practical matters. Mrs. Hernandez had emphasized ensuring the afterbirth was delivered, making Zerelda comfortable, keeping the babies warm. By the time he had everything settled, night had fully fallen, and Zerelda had drifted into an exhausted sleep. The twins nestled securely beside her. Stepping outside the shelter, Sam took a deep breath of the cool night air, overwhelmed by what had just occurred. He had helped bring two new lives into the world. He had witnessed Zerelda's incredible strength. And somewhere in the midst of it all, he had realized that his feelings for her had grown far beyond simple concern or duty. Frank returned near midnight with a doctor from the small settlement of Cedar Springs, 10 miles ahead. The physician examined Zerelda and the babies, pronouncing all three in remarkably good health given the circumstances. "You did well," he told Sam. "Not many men would have kept their heads so clearly." "She did all the work," Sam replied, looking at Zerelda, who was awake now, feeding one of the twins. "We should move them to town tomorrow," the doctor advised. "They need proper rest and care." Sam agreed, and the following morning they carefully transferred Zerelda and the babies to the wagon, now padded with extra blankets for comfort. The journey to Cedar Springs took most of the day, traveling at a gentle pace to avoid jostling the new mother and infants. The small settlement consisted of a main street with basic businesses: a general store, a blacksmith, a saloon, and about 24 homes. The doctor led them to a small boarding house run by a widow named Mrs. Calloway, who immediately took Zerelda and the babies under her wing. "You'll stay right here until you're strong enough to travel again," she declared, showing them to a clean, comfortable room with a large bed and a small crib she had her son bring down from the attic. Sam took a room across the hall, wanting to remain close in case he was needed. For the next week, he divided his time between caring for the horses, exploring the surrounding area, and sitting with Zerelda and the twins. On the third day in Cedar Springs, as Sam sat in a chair by Zerelda's bed watching her nurse the babies, she finally asked the question that had been on both their minds. "What happens now, Sam?" He looked up, meeting her direct gaze. "That depends on what you want." "What I want," she repeated softly. "I've had precious little choice in my life lately." "You have every choice now," Sam assured her. "If you want to stay here in Cedar Springs, I'll help you get established before I move on. If you want to continue west with me, you and the boys are welcome. Or if you want to go somewhere else entirely, I'll see you safely there." Zerelda considered his words carefully. "And what do you want?" Sam hadn't expected the question to be turned back on him. He took a moment to gather his thoughts. "I want you to be safe and happy," he began. "I want those boys to grow up free and strong, and I've come to realize that I'd like to be part of that if you'll allow it." "In what capacity?" Zerelda pressed, her eyes never leaving his. Sam swallowed hard. "In whatever capacity brings you comfort. As a friend, a protector, a provider." Or he hesitated, then continued with quiet honesty, "or as something more in time. If that's something you might want too." Zerelda's expression softened. "I never thought I'd trust a man again after what happened with the Hendersons and Byers, but you've shown me that good men still exist." She glanced down at her sons. "I've named them, you know." "You have?" Sam hadn't wanted to presume by asking. "This one is Thomas, after their father," she said, touching the head of the baby at her breast. "And this one," she stroked the cheek of the sleeping infant beside her, "is Samuel." "If you don't mind." Sam felt a lump rise in his throat. "I'm honored," he managed to say. "I'd like to continue west with you," Zerelda decided. "The boys and I, to see this land you spoke of, to start fresh where no one knows our story." Sam nodded, joy and relief washing through him. "Then that's what we'll do, as soon as you're strong enough to travel." 2 weeks later, Zerelda and the twins were deemed ready for the journey. In that time, Sam had purchased a small covered wagon better suited for family travel than his original farm wagon. He'd also acquired a pair of milk cows to ensure the babies would have fresh milk as they grew. Before leaving Cedar Springs, Sam had one more surprise. He led Zerelda to the back of Mrs. Calloway's boarding house, where a local carpenter had set up his workshop. "I commissioned something," Sam explained, gesturing to the items covered with canvas. He pulled the fabric away to reveal a beautifully crafted double cradle, sized perfectly for twins, and beside it, a new rocking chair. "Since we had to leave the others behind," he said almost shyly. Zerelda's hand flew to her mouth. "Sam, they're beautiful." "The cradle converts as they grow," he explained, demonstrating how the sides could be removed to create 2 separate beds. "And the chair is modeled after the one at the ranch, but with better cushioning for long journeys." Zerelda touched the smooth wood of the cradle, then turned to Sam. Without hesitation, she stepped forward and embraced him, their first such contact not born of necessity or emergency. "Thank you," she whispered against his shoulder, "for everything." Sam held her carefully, acutely aware of her still healing body and the new life they were contemplating. "We'll build something good," he promised. "All 4 of us." Their journey west resumed with a new sense of purpose. Frank had decided to stay in Cedar Springs, having found work at the livery stable, so Sam and Zerelda traveled alone with the twins. They moved at a comfortable pace, covering 15 miles on good days, less when the terrain was challenging. Each evening, they established a routine. Sam would set up camp while Zerelda tended to the babies. They would share a simple meal, then sit by the fire talking as the stars emerged overhead. Sam told stories of his cattle drive days and his dreams for a larger ranch. Zerelda shared memories of her childhood in Missouri and her brief happy marriage. Slowly, the walls Zerelda had built around herself began to crumble. She laughed more freely, allowed Sam to help with the babies without hesitation, and even initiated conversations about their future. One evening, as they camped near a small lake in western New Mexico territory, Zerelda sat beside Sam on a fallen log, the twins asleep in their cradle nearby. "I've been thinking," she said, her voice thoughtful, "about us." Sam's heart quickened, but he kept his voice steady. "What about us?" "When we find the place we're looking for and settle down," she began, then paused to gather her courage. "Would you consider making this arrangement more permanent?" "Are you proposing to me, Zerelda Whitaker?" Sam asked with gentle teasing, hoping to ease her nervousness. She smiled, a full, genuine smile that transformed her face. "I suppose I am, in a way. The boys need a father, And I find I need you, Sam. Not for protection or provision, though you've given both generously. I need your kindness, your strength, your steady presence." "That sounds remarkably like love," Sam observed quietly. Zerelda met his gaze directly. "Perhaps it is. I wasn't looking for it, certainly, but here it is all the same." Sam reached for her hand, entwining his fingers with hers. "I've loved you since the day you baked me a birthday cake," he confessed. "Maybe even before that. I just didn't want to rush you or make you feel obligated." "There's no obligation in this," Zerelda assured him. "Only choice. My choice." Sam lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her knuckles. "Then yes, I would very much consider making this permanent, when you're ready." "I'm ready now," she said with certainty. "We've faced danger together, brought new life into the world together. What more testing does love need?" 3 days later, they reached the small town of Rio Verde, situated in a lush valley with mountains rising in the distance. Sam had heard of the place from other ranchers: good water, fertile soil, and enough isolation to discourage the likes of buyers from following. The town had a small church where the traveling minister visited once a month. As luck would have it, he was due the following Sunday. Sam secured a room at the local hotel for Zerelda and the twins, then set about exploring land options in the area. By week's end, he had purchased 160 acres just outside town, rolling grassland with a year-round stream cutting through it, a small stand of timber, and views of the mountains that took his breath away. "What do you think?" he asked Zerelda as they stood on a rise overlooking what would be their home. The twins were bundled in a sling across her chest, contentedly sleeping. "It's perfect," she breathed. "I can see it all, the house there by the trees, a garden beside it, the barn just beyond." Sam smiled, seeing the vision through her eyes. Room for the boys to run, for cattle to graze, maybe horses too. "And room to grow," Zerelda added meaningfully. Sam's eyebrows rose. "Grow, as a family," she clarified with a smile. "Not immediately, of course. The twins are handful enough. But someday, perhaps." "Someday," Sam agreed, slipping an arm around her waist. "We have all the time in the world now." That Sunday, with the twins as witnesses in the arms of the hotel owner's wife, Sam and Zerelda were married in the simple white church. Zerelda wore a new blue dress purchased from the general store, and Sam wore the only suit he owned, carefully pressed for the occasion. The words they spoke were traditional, but the meaning behind them was anything but conventional. They had forged their bond through extraordinary circumstances, building trust and respect long before love had blossomed. "I take you, Zerelda Whitaker, to be my lawfully wedded wife," Sam vowed, his voice clear and confident. "To have and to hold from this day forward. To protect but never possess, to cherish but never confine, to walk beside as an equal for as long as we both shall live." Tears glistened in Zerelda's eyes as she responded. "I take you, Samuel Tucker, to be my lawfully wedded husband. To share in joy and in hardship, to build our dreams together, to raise our children in freedom and love from this day forward, as long as we both shall live." With the exchange of simple gold bands and the minister's blessing, they began their official life together as the Tucker family. Construction on their home began immediately. Sam hired local men to help raise the main structure, but insisted on building the nursery himself, just as he had promised months ago in Sweetwater. The house was modest but well-designed: 3 bedrooms, a spacious kitchen, and a large porch where the rocking chair held pride of place. By Christmas, they were settled in their new home. The twins were growing rapidly, already showing distinct personalities. Little Thomas was serious and observant, while Samuel was energetic and curious. Both had Zerelda's sage green eyes and Sam's strong chin. On Christmas Eve, after the babies were asleep in their room, Sam and Zerelda sat before the fireplace, a small pine tree decorated with paper stars and candles brightening the corner. "I have something for you," Sam said, retrieving a small package from behind a chair. Zerelda unwrapped it carefully to find a journal bound in soft leather. "It's beautiful," she said, running her fingers over the cover. "I thought you might want to write your story," Sam explained. "For the boys when they are older, so they know where they came from and how brave their mother is." "Our story," Zerelda corrected gently. "It belongs to all of us now." She leaned forward and kissed him a kiss full of promise and future and home. "I have something for you too," she said, reaching for a package tucked beside the fireplace. "Though it's not just from me." Sam unwrapped the gift to find a framed drawing clearly done by a professional in Rio Verde of Zerelda with the twins. The artist had captured her perfectly: the quiet strength, the gentle hands, the loving gaze. "This is the most precious gift I could receive," Sam said, his voice thick with emotion. Zerelda smiled mysteriously. "There's more. Look on the back." Sam turned the frame over to find a small envelope attached. Inside was a folded paper with Zerelda's neat handwriting. "To my husband on our first Christmas, the greatest gift you've given me is choice and freedom. I choose you, today and always. And come July, our family will grow by one more. All my love, Z." Sam looked up, wonder and joy spreading across his face. "July, you're certain?" Zerelda nodded, her smile radiant. "The doctor confirmed it yesterday. Our family is growing just as we hoped." Sam gathered her into his arms, holding her close. "From the moment I saw you in Sweetwater, something told me my life was about to change forever. I never imagined how completely or how wonderfully." "Some things are meant to be," Zerelda murmured against his chest, "even if the path to them seems impossible at first." As the fire crackled and snow began to fall gently outside their window, Sam silently thanked whatever twist of fate had led him to that auction block on that spring day. What had begun as an act of basic humanity had transformed into the greatest blessing of his life: a family built on choice, respect, and love that had grown stronger with every challenge. In the nursery down the hall, the twins slept peacefully, safe and free. And in the circle of Sam's arms, Zerelda rested her head against his shoulder, content in the knowledge that their story, improbable and difficult as its beginning had been, had only just begun. The years passed, bringing both challenges and joys to the Tucker family. The promised July addition, a daughter they named Emily after Sam's sister, arrived healthy and strong, with a cry that could be heard clear to the barn. 2 years later, another son joined the family, followed by another daughter 3 years after that. The ranch prospered under Sam's careful management. The small herd of cattle grew, and he added horses, developing a reputation for breeding some of the finest stock in the territory. Zerelda managed the household with the same determination she'd shown throughout their journey, creating a warm, loving home where all 5 children thrived. The twins, now 10 years old, were inseparable but distinct. Thomas inherited his mother's thoughtfulness and his father's skill with animals, while young Samuel showed a talent for building and design that reminded Sam of his own father. On a warm summer evening, as the family gathered on the porch after supper, Zerelda found Sam standing at the edge of the yard, looking out over their land with a contemplative expression. "What are you thinking about so seriously?" she asked, slipping her arm through his. "How different life might have been," he replied honestly, "for all of us. If I hadn't gone to town that day, if I'd kept walking past that auction block." "But you didn't," Zerelda reminded him. "You stopped, you acted, and here we are." Sam turned to face her, still beautiful to him after all these years. "No regrets, not a single one," she assured him, rising on tiptoe to kiss him. "Every choice brought us here. Every hardship made this sweeter." Behind them, the children's laughter rang out as they played a game in the fading light. Their home stood solid and welcoming, the nursery long since converted to a bedroom for the younger children visible through an open window, its walls now decorated with drawings and keepsakes. "We built something good," Sam said, echoing the promise he'd made years ago outside Mrs. Calloway's boarding house. "Better than good," Zerelda corrected, leaning against his shoulder. "We built a life of freedom and love. What could be better than that?" Sam had no answer except to draw her closer, grateful beyond words for the day he'd found the courage to stand against injustice, and in doing so, had found the greatest happiness of his life. In the distance, the sunset painted the mountains gold and crimson, a fitting backdrop to a love story that had begun in the darkest of circumstances, but had blossomed into something beautiful and enduring. A story of courage and kindness, of second chances and new beginnings. A story that would be told for generations to come.